The United States Supreme Court declared Texas's 2013 anti-abortion laws unconstitutional in a 5-3 vote earlier today. Good afternoon, I'm Brittany Pieper.
And I'm Jim Rick. Thanks for joining us. This ruling could have a major effect on almost identical abortion laws here in Missouri. KOMU 8's Adam Pressler is live on 8th Street, where supporters are gathering to celebrate the news.
Supporters in Missouri are calling this day monumental for reproductive rights and reproductive health care access. Now, the 5-3 ruling affects two major areas of access to abortion services. The first of which is no longer necessary for abortion providers to be at ambulatory surgical centers. Now, what this means is that clinics do not have to meet the same requirements as regular outpatient surgical centers. Secondly, it is no longer necessary for physicians providing abortion services to have admitting privileges at local hospitals. This ruling is especially well known in mid-Missouri after the University of Missouri revoked admitting privileges for Planned Parenthood in Columbia. Senator Kurt Schaefer, who has campaigned against the Columbia Clinic, issued this statement today, saying, ignored the health and well-being of women. Abortion clinics and those administering abortions should have to meet the same health and safety requirements as other outpatient facilities that perform medically invasive procedures. Anything else is just not safe. I also talked with Laura McQuaid, and she said this.
This is a monumental day for reproductive rights. It is historic, not only by the vote itself, but by the content of the decision.
I also spoke with Associate Dean Paul Litton of the Missouri Law School, and he said that the research shows that the U.S. Supreme Court studied says that women's health was actually negatively affected under those laws. Now that goes against what Schaefer was saying. So as you can see, there's a lot of controversy going on. Reporting live in Columbia, Adam Pressler, KOMU 8 News.
A new front today in the battle on concealed weapons as Governor Jay Nixon vetoed a bill that would allow Missourians to conceal and carry without a permit. KOMU 8's Melissa Zigowitz got reactions from both sides of the issue.
The bill would have allowed Missourians to carry a concealed gun even if they had been denied after a background check due to criminal history. The veto created strong reactions divided on partisan lines. The bill would have added the Stand Your Ground law, which removes the duty to retreat before using force in self-defense. One local gun shop owner says this was part of the bill he felt was common sense law.
That was one of the few things that I saw that was a very viable portion of the change in statute, that you would be able to stand your ground or defend yourself on your property, not just your domicile. Unfortunately, that's a part of this entire bill, so that's part that didn't pass.
You also currently in public have a duty to retreat from situations that you can safely retreat to. That would take that away so that people could shoot to kill, potentially in situations where they could have had a nonviolent resolution.
The bill passed with more than enough votes to override a veto, and lawmakers can do just that in September.
No arrests have been made after Columbia police found a man dead in his home Saturday morning. 25-year-old Edmund Randolph Jr. was declared dead at his home on Leeway Drive. Police originally believed he had suffered a heart attack, but now think foul play was involved. Police have not released the cause of death. There were a couple of fires in mid-Missouri this weekend, but no casualties. A structure fire in Hallsville last night shut down part of Route B. The Columbia Fire Department responded to a second fire Sunday, a house fire caused by lightning. Neighbors called the fire department saying they saw smoke coming from a house on Crown Point. Crews could see flames from outside the house. It took about 20 minutes to get it under control. No one was hurt. A cat was rescued.
The man hit by a train while in his vehicle while it was sitting on the tracks in Boonville is in serious condition today at University Hospital. A train crashed into a car near the Isle of Capri Casino and Missouri River Friday night. Officials say 73-year-old Donald Wood stopped his car on the tracks when the train hit his car. The conductor of the train was not injured. The early arrival of the dry summer heat means that the stakes are higher for those who like to celebrate with fireworks with the 4th of July coming up. KOMU 8's Amina Petinich reached out to the Boone County Fire Department and shares how to prevent fires over the 4th of July weekend.
I spoke with Assistant Chief Gail Bloomingcamp, and he told me ways to ensure a safe 4th of July weekend. He said whether it's your first time setting fireworks or not, reading labeling is most important. Next, having an adult sober monitor guide kids when setting them off will ensure no injuries happen. He said after someone is done lighting fireworks to put them in a bucket of water. Doing this will cool them down where they can be safely thrown away. He explained why people need to be aware when setting off fireworks.
When those fireworks leave the ground, there's no telling where it's going to land. And so it can land in dry grass, it could land on someone's roof, it can land in a gutter that's full of dry leaves. And cause a fire. And so people need to understand that they are responsible for damage that occurs to someone else's property in the event of a fire.
If the worst happens and fireworks turn into a fire, Bloomingcamp says to call 911 immediately.
It has been a pretty hot start to the summer so far, as Amina was just talking about, but Kenton has told me that we might have some rain in the forecast that might help with some of those conditions. So Kenton, what do we have? What are we looking at?
Yeah, our temperatures are pretty warm out there still. We're still feeling a lot of heat and even some humidity as well. And we're also going to be talking about our fan club even more coming up later in the show.
Kenton, thank you very much. After weather, the latest on a deadly car-train crash in Colorado.
And we'll have the latest on pop legend Prince's $300 million estate.
And you're taking a live look over Business 54 at the Lake of the Ozarks on this Monday afternoon. It's 5:06. This is KOMU 8 News, first at 5. Coverage you can count on.
We're going to be talking about Fan Club, just getting a little bit more information about it. How long have we been kind of sponsors together with Fan Club? We'll keep you updated with the latest here, and we'll have more coming up later in the show.
In national news, we have an update on the Amtrak crash in Colorado. The parents and 3 daughters were killed by a train. Officials say a 4-year-old, the lone survivor in the van, is at a Denver hospital. Troopers say they were crossing the railroad tracks in their minivan when the train hit them. State Patrol says the driver did not yield, but the railroad crossing does not have any gates or lights. The Amtrak investigation is ongoing.
A unanimous decision from the Supreme Court overturned the corruption conviction of former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell today. Prosecutors say he accepted gifts and loans in exchange for promoting a dietary supplement. McDonnell denies any wrongdoing. He was convicted of 11 counts of public corruption in 2014. The family of Prince will have to wait to find out who inherits his fortune and property. A county judge will set ground rules for DNA testing to determine relatives. Prince died without a will and did not have any known children. He did have a sister and several half-siblings. Under Minnesota law, his relatives stand to inherit parts of the $300 million estate.
Coming up, fallout continues after the UK's decision to leave the European Union. We'll have the latest. The vote in Britain to leave the European Union is still generating aftershocks today.
Secretary of State John Kerry is in Brussels to address the fallout as British leaders try to ease concerns. NBC's Kier Simmons reports.
Secretary Kerry in Brussels today for emergency talks.
So it is now incumbent on leaders to implement the will of the people and to do so in a way that is responsible, sensitive, thoughtful, and I hope strategic.
The man in charge of Britain's finances addressing the crisis in an early morning news conference, attempting to calm the European markets.
It will not be plain sailing in the days ahead. But let me be clear, you should not underestimate our resolve. We were prepared for the unexpected, and we are equipped for whatever happens.
Britain will take its time before leaving the European Union, he said, but the United Kingdom is deeply divided this morning. Both main political parties heading for leadership elections. An online petition, now 3.6 million signatures, calling for a revote on the referendum. The Pope yesterday urging unity and understanding. There is something not working in Europe's union, he said. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. But many of Europe's leaders seem in no mood to compromise. The United States had not wanted Britain to leave the EU. Secretary Kerry is now urging other European countries not to follow Britain out of the door. One British lawmaker saying today we need to replace hate with hope. Back to you.
The Polish foreign minister says Great Britain should not be forced out of the European Union as quickly as possible. He believes the EU should have done more to keep the British in the bloc. Other foreign leaders believe the UK will leave quickly. Today, the foreign minister is hosting a meeting of ministers from several EU countries to discuss the consequences. Coming up, a new study says LGBTQ adults might have more health problems than their peers.
We'll have the specifics of that study in Your Health right after the break. PepsiCo is bringing back aspartame in a new beverage in the U.S. less than a year after pulling the artificial sweetener from its Diet Pepsi. This fall, the company will start selling Diet Pepsi Classic Sweetener Blend, which will contain aspartame in its formula. Diet Pepsi will continue to be sweetened without aspartame. Pepsi will also rename Pepsi Max Pepsi Zero Sugar in the U.S. Gay and lesbian adults might experience more physical and mental health problems than their straight peers. Researchers at Vanderbilt University surveyed a group of adults of various sexual orientations about their health and lifestyle habits. Gay and bisexual men and women were much more likely to be smokers and heavy drinkers than their peers. Lesbian and bisexual women were also more likely to have a chronic disease. The U.S. National Whitewater Center in Charlotte has temporarily shut down water activities after a teen died from contracting a brain-eating amoeba. 18-year-old Lauren Seitz died Sunday, just a few days after rafting at the center. Officials say the amoeba can be fatal when it's forced in a person's nose, and Seitz was in a raft that overturned. They say while this is a tragedy, it is not a common threat. And the CDC confirmed the contaminated water supply from the Flint River in Michigan did affect the health of young children. Investigators looked at blood lead levels in children under the age of 6 before, during, and after the Flint River was used for drinking water. The odds of a child having a dangerous lead level was nearly 50% higher when the water source came from the Flint River.
Supporters in Missouri are calling this a monumental day for reproductive rights and health access. KOMU 8's Adam Pressler is live in downtown Columbia with a recap of our top story.
The 5-3 ruling affects two major parts of abortion services. First, it is no longer necessary to have ambulatory surgical centers. Now, what that means is that they cannot be they have different requirements than people with normal outpatient surgery processes. Secondly, local doctors are not required to have admittance be forced to have admittance privileges at local hospitals. This is pretty big around mid-Missouri, as we saw that with the MU case, as Mizzou revoked the privileges of the local Planned Parenthood. Reporting live in Columbia, Adam Pressler, KOMU 8 News.
Here's a look at what we're following for KOMU 8 News at 10. A new program teams up with churches to educate the African-American community about certain health issues.
We'll hear from some of the church leaders who are involved in the program. Now let's check the forecast again. Kenton is live at Lowe's in Columbia to talk about the weather and the KOMU 8 fan club. Kenton.
Here in mid-Missouri, once again, high temperatures right around the 90-degree mark, 91 here in Columbia, and we are going to, luckily, cool down in the coming days. We're getting down into the 80s eventually, and we could even see more shower and thunderstorm activity. It's going to be great for the moderate or the kind of small drought that we're in right now. Luckily, it looks like it might not get too much worse here in the coming, at least in the next week or so. But we are talking about our fan club. We're going to have much more about that coming up on KOMU 8 News at 6. We'll be back talking with Nick again from the Columbia Voluntary Action Center, so please stay tuned for that. We'll have a lot more coming up with news, weather, and sports on KOMU 8 News at 6.
On air, online, on Facebook, on Twitter, on the News app, and the Weather app. KOMU 8 News. Coverage you can count on.